The views, comments, stories, and opinions shared within this podcast are our own, or those of our guests, and in no way represent the views of the companies, associations, or organizations that any of us may work for or represent. All stories, events, and tales shared within this episode may or may not have happened in the manner in which they were told. They may or may not have even happened at all. The details have been changed to protect the innocent and the guilty alike. This is Squawk Ident. You're listening to Squawk Ident, an aviation podcast that explores the many pathways to an aviation profession, the challenges that a professional aviator can expect in today's marketplace, and we share many stories along the way. I'm your host, Aviator Tony, a professional airline pilot currently flying for a U.S. legacy airline with over 20 years on the flight line. Welcome aboard Flight 150 of the Squawk Ident Podcast, recorded on the 27th of April, 2025, from the new Aviator Sound Studios from somewhere in Fountain Hills, Arizona. That's right, we've moved. On today's flight, we will discuss our 3-month hiatus, vacation bidding, upgrade training, commuting nightmares, and the challenges that an aviator can expect with an ever-growing family and their career expectations. We also take a look at how the media has placed aviation safety under the microscope after a string of devastating aircraft accidents. So stick with us as we discuss all this and more on this, the 150th episode of the Squawk Ident Podcast.
It's a little rusty, but you know.
Well, it's been a while.
I know.
It's like not flying an airplane for like a few weeks and then jumping in the cockpit going, where do all these buttons do again? Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
46 days.
What I'm doing.
Yeah. Terry. Well, joining me today is an outstanding aviator and Squawk Ident podcast co-host. He is a former U.S. Navy Reserve Chief Information System Technician, a certified flight instructor, and an Embraer 175 captain for Sandpiper Regional, the alias to one of Legacy Airlines' wholly owned regional airlines. Joining us from the middle of his qualified upgrade training on the Embraer 175, from high atop his second-floor mobile studio from somewhere in Euless, Texas, please help me in welcoming to the show, Mr. Alex. I gotta change that now. Captain Alex Daigle. Captain, how you doing?
Well, that's a nice moniker to be adding to the resume now. In the middle of upgrade training, so that's always fun. I'm good. Life's fantastic. Can't complain. I mean,
well, you can.
But no one really listens. Yeah, no one listens anyways. And I've chewed your guys' ears off enough about all the complaints. But no, life's good. I'm in a good spot in my life.
Good.
For the first time, and I'm probably the happiest I've been in probably about 10 years.
That's fantastic. It's actually scary on how much your life and you know your progression in your career and in your family life has a lot of similarities with mine. It's like you're my brother from another mother sometimes, when with all the challenges that you're been going through and I've been going through over the past couple of years. And so no, glad to have you as part of the circle as we discussed. And I'm so happy.
No, and I'm happy for you. Like, words cannot convey obviously my joy for you, which we'll get into later. I don't want to spoil the fun for everybody yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm also very excited to have another Squawk Ident podcast co-host joining us. He is a superb aviator and Squawk Ident podcast co-host. He is a retired U.S. Army colonel, former Black Hawk Battalion commander. His journey has led him to operate Apaches, Black Hawks, C-12s to UC-35s. And he has a master's degree in management and strategic studies. He is a former Embraer 145 and a Boeing 737 pilot. Currently, he's the 7576 pilot for Trans Global. The name we use here on the show is an alias to his employer, a U.S. mainline carrier. Joining us from his home studio in Northern Virginia, where he's recovering from a trip sequence from Zurich, Switzerland. That's for you, Roger. Help me in welcoming back to the show, Terry S. Terry, how you doing?
Hello, mein Freunds. Wie geht's? Sorry, I'm still in Switzerland. Doing good.
I was going to say, is
doing
that
good.
German?
It's German. You know, Switzerland is really weird because like they speak different languages depending on what part of the country you're in. So Zurich is up in the north near Germany. They speak German. And you go to Geneva, where I'm going next week. They speak French, and there's a lot of French influence and, you know, all that kind of stuff. You can get some very nice croissants
Sacre bleu.
in Geneva. So
So
Yeah, no,
how
I'm
many,
doing well.
How many destinations does Transglobal go to in Switzerland? Is it 2?
Just the two, Zurich and Geneva.
Okay.
Those are the two big ones.
Yeah.
Only Geneva is still in Switzerland. It's not in Germany. It's not in France. It's still in Switzerland.
Still in Switzerland.
I heard
That's
there's a
correct.
really cool convention there. Is it Comic-Con or what's going on there?
In Switzerland? I don't
No,
know.
in Geneva.
On Geneva?
I heard there's some kind of convention there. I don't know. I have to look that one up.
He's talking about the Geneva conventions, Terry.
It's still early. It's still early. Come on. I'm only on cup number 2 here.
Yeah, cheers. Well, it's great to
joke
have
was lame.
it's great to have you guys back. It's like we never took a hiatus. Speaking of hiatus, let's kind of get into it. So, been hosting this show, creating, writing, producing, publishing all this stuff for 7 years now, 7 seasons. And it's been relatively consistent the whole time. I never really took more than 30 days off since the conception of this show and getting it on air. And I had no intention of going 3 months without making a show, but life happens, and it happened really quick. So many changes since our last show. I know we kind of talked about that on episode 149, where we talked about moving and all the changes that were ahead of me. But yeah, I'm moving into a home here in Fountain Hills, Arizona. Fantastic neighborhood. Can't believe how many neighbors just swing by and say, "Oh, hello, neighbor. Saw this, saw that." Had a little excitement 2 nights ago. Went to bed relatively early. I think it was around 10 p.m. Yes, after the age of 50, that's kind of even late, But no, we went to bed at a decent hour, and the bedroom's in the back of the house. It's very quiet. Had the AC on because it's getting hot here. It's the evenings are cool. They're down in the 50s and in some cases in the high 40s. But during the day, it could get up to 90, which is what it was that couple nights ago. And so the house stays warm. So we cool it down a little bit, and then that noise kind of drowns out like any other noises. A lot of coyotes howling at night. So if we do sleep with the window open, you get the coyotes howling. Sometimes it feels like they're right outside the window. It's pretty cool, the wildlife here. We've had javelinas come through the yard. For those that don't know, those are wild pigs. They're not that big, but they're portly. They can throw their weight around, and they're the ones you have to actually look out for. The coyotes won't mess with you. The bobcats, which we've seen a few of those, won't mess with you. But the javelinas, especially if there's a baby javelina around, the mama, she'll charge you, and there's some weight behind them. They'll get you on. They'll knock you over and possibly attack you.
I was going to ask, are they like the hogs out here in Texas where they'll like chase you down and, they're more aggressive than any of the other wildlife?
Exactly. Actually saw a viral video of a javelina early morning here in the Phoenix area, and it was probably clocking about 30 miles an hour down the road, and somebody videotaped it. And I mean, those things are fast. You wouldn't think so, but so we have quite a bit of wildlife here. A lot of quail, which are funny looking birds. They're always in the yard, and rabbits, and so it's a nice place. So we were fast asleep, and in the morning, I got my first cup of coffee, and open up the blinds, start airing out the house, and my significant other, she comes down the hallway and says, "The mailbox is gone. The mailbox is gone." I'm like, "What? Mailbox?" So I opened the door, and sure enough, the pole, the mailbox, and the light that was on top of it, gone. Like, not knocked over, gone. So someone must have come around the corner at a relatively high rate of speed, knocked the whole thing out. The mailbox ended up in front of the neighbor's house, which is significant distance, probably a good 10 yards away. And I was run over, like not just knocked over, but run over. I didn't hear a thing. And then the neighbors came out. And the neighbor's son said, yeah, it woke me up at 11 o'clock last night. I thought a car hit a house. It was so loud. And I was like, wow, I didn't hear a thing. But yeah, sure enough, we got a little bit of excitement in the neighborhood as well. So, um, but yeah, I mean, between the wildlife and the friendliness of the neighbors and the community and how quaint this town is, I think 22,000 residents live here. It's a relatively small city or town, just north of the Scottsdale area. So I can't tell you how much I'm in love with this place. It's so far. Now, ask me again in a few months when it's 150 degrees outside. It'll be another story. But yeah, a lot of projects around. And commuting has really been the major factor in why the show hasn't been produced at a regular rate. When you commute, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever carrier, whatever frequency between whatever airports you're commuting. Now, I commuted off and on for over 12 years when I was a sandpiper. And I was commuting from the left coast to Chicago, the left coast to the right coast. I mean, I pretty much commuted uh, long distance commuting. Most of the time, one leg commutes, so I can't complain. There are those that I know that do two leg commutes, and those are just awful. Um, But commuting, you can't really bring a third bag with equipment, and it gets to be kind of a hassle, especially when the flights are full and you're on. Sometimes you're not boarding right away. And I know that over at Legacy Airlines, they not too long ago changed their policy that you have to board with your group number. And if you board ahead of your group number, it won't on you. It won't let you on the aircraft, and the flight and the gate agent will have to override it if there's good reason. So, as a non-revving employee, uniform or not, if the group number on your boarding card is Group 6, for example, you're supposed to board with Group 6. Now, good luck finding a place in the overhead for your bag. After about Group 6 or 7, they usually start to get full. And if you have two bags, hopefully one fits under the seat in front of you because now you're even having more of a challenge. Actually, I had some clarity from our chief pilot about this because just last week I was commuting from Phoenix to Los Angeles, and I just had my kit bag and my rollerboard bag. And I'm so used to that, in the past 20 years, if you're in uniform, you just kind of go up with, if you're non-revving, you just kind of go up with like after first class. And they're like, yeah, sure, come on. And sometimes they'll wave you on and say, hey, go on with the crew. As long as all the crew is there, you can get on the airplane and stow your bags and get settled before the passengers go on. So I'm kind of used to that. Well, I started to board with group 1 and the gate agent goes, are you deadheading? And I said, no, I'm just getting to work. Because you're supposed to board with your group number. Like, oh, I'm sorry about that. You want me to wait for my group? She's like, no, I'll let you on this time, but just, board with your group number when you're non-revving, uniform or not. Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I got on the jet bridge, and as I'm walking down the jet bridge, the length of the jet bridge, I went from kind of like, oh, okay, thank you, to what the heck, small little things like this shouldn't matter, but they kind of do. Now, we're going to get into Alex's commuting as well, and I know Terry's commuted in the past as well. Have you guys experienced anything like this where it's getting a little harder to commute?
I've noticed it with my obviously now current commute situation that with the new change at Legacy, and it's trickled down to Sandpiper that most gate agents are pretty cool about it, and they let you board ahead of time or board with the crew, especially in the smaller outstations like where I commute from. They're like, just go, we got you, we'll take care of you. It seems to be more at the hubs, and it seems to be really more legacy based gate agents than it does the Sandpiper gate agents that do that they're more of the sticklers to the rules because that's their give them an inch and they're going
You
Is that
just mute it.
also when you are jump seating or just non-revving?
So only non-revving. If you are jump seating now over at Legacy, you can list for the jump seat in your own metal. So if I'm flying on a Legacy airline aircraft up to I think 2 weeks ahead of time, I can list not just as a non-rev or non-revenue passenger. I could also list for the jump seat as a pilot, and you can list up to 2 jump seaters, pilot cockpit jump seaters, per flight. So, like, if I know I'm going to commute, I could potentially list for the jump seat in the cockpit for that flight for like half the month at a time. And that way I am guaranteed a minimum a cockpit jump seat, barring someone from the FAA or some other high ranking, officially working person that would kick me out of that jump seat. This was something put in place, I think, either with the last contract or the contract before, where pilots were complaining, like, well, if I'm going to try 2 chances to get to work, after that, I'm just going to call it sick, or, because this is crazy. Because flights were full. So they added this clause. Now, if you're jump seating, you can go down with the crew as long as minimum crew's on the aircraft. However, etiquette dictates that you have, as you know, a plethora of things to do on the flight deck prior to every departure. And even if you walk down there 45 to an hour prior, you're busy. You're busy up until the last 5 minutes. So what I try to do, if I'm jump seating in the cockpit jump seat, I will check in with the gate agent, let them know I'm there. They usually say, hey, it's full today, so it's going to be the jump seat. Okay. And nothing's paper anymore. It's all on your phone. So I'll get an email, company email going, ping, going, hey, here's your jump seat boarding card. And that's what you scan at the gate reader. If not, you can ask for a paper ticket. And what I'll usually do is I'll stand aside and I'll wait until they get into the higher group numbers. And that gives me a chance to like sit there and stay out of the way, make eye contact with the gate agents and stuff. And you never know. Someone might not show up and they go, oh, got a seat for you. And that saves, because if you're already in the cockpit, they're not going to do that for you. They're busy because it's last second. So that kind of is an etiquette that I think most pilots do. Technically, you can go down anytime, but it's not like you're in a wide body where you can just hang out on the flight deck. It's, especially if it's a 7.3, there's no place. So baggage storage.
That's the same with ours too. Like, we don't have the room. We just don't.
Right. So I see some pilots, what they'll do is they'll go down early. They'll introduce themselves to the flight crew. They'll, etiquette dictates, hey, do you mind if I ride your cockpit jump seat today? Here's my cards. Here's my ID. If it's another carrier, here's my license and my medical, my passport. And then they go, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go hang out on the jet bridge. And that way you can stow your bag. A lot of times the number one flight attendant will go, yeah, just put it in an overhead bin in first class. There's plenty of room. Or sometimes the flight attendant's like, well, no, just wait till the end and we'll find room for your bag. If the cockpit's big enough, then it's not going to be a problem. You can say, hey, Captain, do you mind if I stow my bag on the flight deck? And they'll say, oh, yeah, no problem. Put it right here, tie it down right there. Fine. If the cockpit's not big enough for that, then obviously it would be beneficial to go down early, say, hey, can I throw my kit bag in an overhead or in a closet somewhere? And then I'll get out of your way. That's probably the best way to do it. And if you're deadheading, meaning you're a working part of the crew. Now, for those listeners out there that don't know what a deadhead is, that's when you're going to be flying an airplane, say from Dallas to San Antonio, but you're currently in Los Angeles. And so they're going to deadhead you, meaning you're going to sit in the back of the airplane with the passengers. They're going to give you a positive space seat, and they're going to deadhead you to Dallas so that you can work your next leg. Now, you have to go. You're a must ride. And in that situation, you are usually printed out a card or it's on your phone, and it doesn't matter what the group number is. If you're a deadheading crew member, you usually go down with the crew and you'll hang out on the jet bridge wait until the captain does his pre-flight briefing with the crew. And then once the number one gives you a thumbs up going, okay, you can board now, or the cleaning crew is still on the airplane sometimes and they're doing their briefing. And then the number one will go, okay, you can come on now. It's clear. And you go and you stow your bag and you sit there, wait patiently. That's why if you're a passenger and you walk on the airplane and there's like 5 pilots in the back and you're like, shouldn't you be flying the airplane? That's why they're deadheading or either to or fro. So did I answer that correctly? Anything you guys want to add?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the deadheading as well. It's very it pretty much the same for us. I mean, if you're jump seating, we get this. It's called a flight deck access card. Basically, it's a printed boarding pass that says flight deck access approved or something like that, and you take it down, you show it to the captain, but you can go down as soon as there's minimum crew on board. And then same with deadheading, you can go down as soon as there's minimum crew on board. I haven't tried the non-rev thing, so I'm not familiar with that. I did some jump seating back in December where I had the flight deck access card, and I went down. Basically as the crew was on board. What I did run into during my trip out there, I flew out to San Francisco, was the gate agents not knowing the policy. Like, I was jump seating, right? So I should get the access card. I should be able to go down as soon as the crew's on. Whether I'm obviously jump seating, you're going to wear the proper clothing, right? You're not going to be in shorts and flip flops. But I'm wearing khakis and a polo shirt, and I asked to go down, and the gate agent, who was admittedly pretty new, was like, okay, well, we'll let you know when they're ready for you. I'm like, no. They're on board. I can go down now. Check your documentation, check your, gate agent operations manual, whatever it's called. And she's like, oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you had to wait, till we knew we had space for you. No, you gotta. So sometimes you have to educate the gate agents as well. But this is the first I've heard about non-revving having issues.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I told the story months ago, but I remember very recently I was somewhere in South Carolina doing SB there. It's been so long, but so I did this layover, and then the next morning we're supposed to trek over to the airport to fly out on a 319 back to Charlotte, and the aircraft had a maintenance issue. So I had contacted SOC before leaving the hotel, and I said, "Yeah, listen, I see that there's a delay on this flight because of a maintenance issue. Can you tell me what's going on?" They're like, "Oh yeah, they have to fly in parts. It's going to be like 6 hours." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm not leaving the hotel. I'm going to contact SOC and let them know what's going on." So that's what I did. And of course, that turned into an extra layover, an extra overnight. And then the next day, they're like, "Yeah, we're going to get you, that plane's not going anywhere. We're going to deadhead you back to Charlotte, and then you're going to deadhead home from there." I said, "Okay, that's fine." So I get to the gate. It's early in the morning on day 3. And it's a relatively small airport. A lot of construction going on. So they were like in a portable for the terminal at that time. And I walk up and the gate agent goes, "Can you take the later flight?" I'm like, "Excuse me? I'm deadheading. I'm on the NS, on the manifest. I'm deadheading. I'm working." She goes, "Oh, but you have to take this flight because this flight's full and I have to buy people off. And if you can take the next flight, I can put you on the next flight." I'm like, "Well, I don't think scheduling would appreciate the next flight being late or canceled because I'm not where I'm supposed to be." She goes, "Oh, okay, fine." So now she's making PA, "Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves in an oversold situation. We're willing to give a $50 travel voucher." I'm just sitting there quietly off to the side, like, okay. And again, like you said, Terry, she probably was either new or just really didn't like confrontation. So either way, I get it. But commuting's been tough. And you know who's been struggling with commuting and living in a new city, in a new home, is Alex. Alex, what can you tell me about? Yeah, it's not a long commute, right?
Oh, no. So I moved out at the beginning of the year to the Lubbock area, and um, it's a 45-minute flight, and there's like 6, 7, 8 flights a day, a couple mainline flights, uh, a handful of sandpiper flights, and it's not terrible. It just adds a little bit of extra time to your day, which it's not bad. And I told myself if I ever had to commute again, it's like I would do an hour and a half flight or less and in the same time zone, because it's as everyone knows, I used to live out in California before I moved to Texas, and that commute was rough. I'm not doing coast to coast, but doing a 2 time zone commute was just rough on it.
Yeah.
And when I worked in recruiting, people would ask, "Oh, how was commuting? How did you like it? Was it good? Was it bad?" And I said, "Look, I'm a numbers guy at the end of the day, and you know, just sitting in a jump seat, going to and fro DFW from California was a 3 hour flight there and then a 3 hour flight back. So that's 6 hours on a sequence. If you do 4 sequences a month, that's 24 hours. That's effectively a day that you've lost just sitting in a jump seat, nothing more. Right. That's not coupling in being there early. That's not coupling in, getting done with your sequence. And then you have to wait for your next flight, which is then a couple more hours. Or then you get into, where you're going and you're, 3 or 4 hours, before your actual departure, because you have to give yourself 2 attempts to get there. And it's a lot. But the commute's not bad, except, and this happened to me yesterday. I was going to go. I had my first sim lesson yesterday, and I figured because going back to training from your home of record, you can positive space. So I had a positive space seat. I wasn't non-revving, but I still gave myself 2 attempts just to be on the safe side, err on the side of caution, right? And I get to the airport, and there's rain and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's not terrible rain, but then I started looking at the radar, and I'm like, yeah, there's some good yellow pocket cells basically all surrounding the airport. And I'm watching the inbound flight circle and hold and hold. And I'm sitting there talking with the gate agents who, I've gotten friendly with out at the Lubbock airport. And I'm sitting there talking with them. And she gets a phone call and she goes, "What? Okay, okay." And you could hear the inflection just go, basically in her mind go, "Oh shit." Right. And she looks, there's a little group of us all kind of standing around, kind of talking and hanging out. And she goes, "Well, the plane just diverted to Abilene."
Yeah.
So now I'm between a rock and a hard place, because technically the next flight is supposed to be on its way within 10 minutes of when we leave. Basically, Lubbock has, for the most part, in the morning, like 1 hour, if you want to call it that, up until about the noon mark. And then there's a little bit of gap. And then there's like 1 hour in the evening going back the other way up until about the 8 o'clock mark. Right. So I was like, well, I can't wait. I can't take this gamble that this storm's going to pass and wait for the second flight to come in. Like, it was like, well, we got to go and we got to drive now, you know? Well, had I been a little more patient, the Abilene flight flew back to Lubbock, and the other flight made it in perfectly fine. And I would have made it to Dallas completely fine.
So
And
let's talk about stress management.
well, and what's funny with all of that is, so Rachel and I use this app. It's called Flighty, and it's kind of a cool thing because you can track each other's flights and all that stuff. You have to manually put them in, but you can track each other's flights, and it keeps like mileage and all that stuff. Like for the flight attendants, it's awesome because for them, it gets them like, how much flight time they've flown, how much mileage they've flown, and everything like that. Really kind of a cool app. It's got a free version, which I use the free version. But the paid version, there's more in depth and stuff like that. Like you can see inbounds and all that stuff. But she gets a notification on her flighty as we're like, I would say
Let's block that, yeah.
2 hours into the 4.5 hour drive. And she goes, "Oh, hey, it says you landed in Dallas." Because I forgot to take out the Like, and I'm like,
Oh man. Well, hey,
but
lessons.
it's a gamble that you can't take. You know what I mean? Especially when you have to be there. And
Well, it's about mitigating
so, I mean,
risk.
at least,
What the risk of
yeah.
you not showing up to training would have set you back significantly. So there's a, I
Oh,
mean, they
100%.
understand, if they go, hey, yeah, I have weather in Dallas, I couldn't make it in. Yeah, then you have to schedule to come in, reschedule your time. That's going to throw your schedule off. You're not going to get done at the scheduled time. And sometimes it can be really bad, especially if the training department is overwhelmed. And if you miss an event, it could be a month before you get back into the training department where they
Well,
have a slim slot open.
and that's where we're at right now is I was talking with my sim instructor last night, and he goes, the sims are just going constantly from 4 a.m. to 2 a.m. every day now. Like, Sandpiper's starting to ramp back up. We've got upgrades going left and right. We've got new hires starting to come back in. Like, it's picking up. So you're right. If I would have missed this, who knows if it would have been like a week, 2 weeks, a month,
Yeah.
till they can weasel me back into a sim slot.
Right.
So,
It's funny
and
because you can tell which pilot has had a problem in their past with training, because they're the ones that they check into the hotel on day one of training and they don't go home. They just stay at the hotel the whole time. Like, nope, I'm not, nope,
mhm.
nope. I'm just going to sit here and study, or I'll go see a movie or something. And I'm not going home, because they've been burned before. And, all it takes is one time to be burned. And you're like, oh, that's not going to happen to me again. Now, for the rest of us that, we've been fortunate to make it work, or we have the opportunity like you had, where I drive for 4 hours and I'm there. Well, in Texas, that's like going to the store, right? So, it, you
At
were
least I had the opportunity to drive. Let's
right.
just
Like,
leave it
if
at
from
that.
California, it would not have been a possibility. So,
No.
although I heard Amtrak is really good this time here, but so
Okay.
you mitigated risk, right? And you made it happen. You made sure you were where you were. So yeah, it sucks that you had to drive. And,
But at least I'm here and say, oh, I have to drive. Now, Rachel's mad because she has to, drive back today by herself. But,
uh,
that's, I know. But
yeah,
I mean, what other options?
right, right. So, well, she's a trooper and you owe her big time. So,
Well, I owe her for a lot more than just that.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, I got a question for you. So in our group chat, someone posed, "Hey, with when it comes to jump seating, going back to the jump seating conversation, can you jump seat with facial hair?"
No.
Okay, so your so this was someone answered this. Your AOM says no. Our AOM says yes. Alpha says no.
From what I understand, the official stance on this from Legacy Airlines' upper management is, in both Boeing and Airbus aircraft, when you look at the oxygen masks on the flight deck, it says no beards, because both manufacturers say if you have a beard, the seal around the face mask may not seal. And you think, what's the big deal? How if there's a fire on the flight deck, smoke and fire on the flight deck, and you don an oxygen mask on your head, and the seal is not like perfectly sealed, you're now putting a flammable gas into the cockpit. Your face will then catch fire, right? So
Mhm.
their logic is, until the manufacturer dictates that facial hair can be worn and the mask will still seal appropriately, then they'll change their stance. However, since the manufacturer still has on the printed right there on the mask, no beards, the face mask won't seal, whatever it says, for the verbatim, I don't know, but I'm paraphrasing here. Since that says it printed on the equipment, on the emergency equipment, they're not going to allow it. Now, the argument has been made. There are actually Facebook groups of people that are lobbying Congress right now to change the FARs because in Europe and in Canada, facial hair is allowed. Now, how they're getting away with it, I don't know. I don't know if their masks don't have that or if that's only an FAA thing, US thing only. I don't know. However, since it's on the mask itself, it doesn't matter what the companies say. Like some of them can go, well, our POI has said that it's allowed, so we're going to allow it, you know? But that's the official stance, I can tell you, for Legacy Airlines and their wholly owns. The only reason I know this is because our company has a podcast that comes out, I don't know how often, like once a week or once every other week. I don't know. But it's called Push to Talk, where pilots can write in to the director of flight ops and ask questions. And that is a very popular question.
Gotcha. No, it's just that's been obviously a popular question across boards and everything like that, but it just got posted to one of the group chats that I'm a part of. But yeah, I was gonna say, but Riddle just came out with a study showing that it does not interfere with the effectiveness of oxygen masks.
Yeah, and that's the argument a lot of people from these pages and the lobbyists are now arguing. Now, Terry has put up something. Is this the article from?
Yeah, this is the article. It's on Aerocrew News. Basically says that a recent study has provided strong evidence beards do not interfere with the effectiveness of oxygen masks for airline pilots. And they did a pretty thorough study. They tested pilots with beards, without beards, 24 volunteers in an altitude chamber, wearing oxygen masks in 3 different beard conditions: clean shaven, short beards, and long beards, and tested their blood oxygen levels while doing that. And basically they found that there was no issue. And listen, these masks, we all know these masks on the airplanes are positive pressure masks, right?
Uh-huh.
It's forcing air into your face. Even if there was any sort of slight leakage, right, or slight gaps, that positive pressure is going to be pushing anything that might come in. It's going to be pushing it out, right? So, yeah, I listen. I don't care about beards either way. I probably wouldn't have one even if it was approved. But it's it's probably time to get with the 21st century and just let it go.
You're saying the FAA should get with the 21st century?
Yeah. Sorry,
I think
we're still in the 1970s. I know, but
I think it's still a carryover from when pilots back in the day were basically ex-military, and that's kind of the standard that they pulled from, was these guys coming from the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines, and they were clean shaven, basically all of our rules. And I mean, hell, if you look at the old Pan Am uniforms, it was basically a naval officer's uniform, just the crest changed.
Right.
So, I mean, I get it. It's just, there's evidence to support that beards with gas masks in the military are the same way, that it doesn't affect their effectiveness to prevent like the CBRNE stuff.
Terry just came back. How did you do that?
That was a cool transition to Terry. He's
still muted.
He did a cool transition, but he can't unmute himself.
I have a little sorry. I'm muting and unmuting myself through Zoom, and I have physical buttons over here that I normally use. So,
man, I need to get you to come out and help me set up some updates to the studio. That was really cool. There you go.
We're getting with the 21st century.
I'm like the FAA in my day.
But no, it was just a question. I wanted to see what you guys thought of it as well. I'm kind of on the stance of Terry. Like, I really don't care either way. I'll follow what the company says, but like,
yeah,
it doesn't bother me.
I would love to have just like the stubble beard.
Yeah.
The Crockett
As long
and
as it-
Tubbs. I'm going to date myself now. The Miami
Like-
Vice Crockett and Tubbs. I would love to have that.
Well, like like the flight attendants where they can have a beard, but they they keep it neatly trimmed or stuff like that. Like I'd like a goatee. Like when Tony and I met, like going way back. Excuse me, way back. I had a goatee as a flight instructor. So
Yeah. I've played around. I've had the mustache, at work, and I have curly hair.
I cut mine off.
So it looks like a caterpillar resting on my lip, and now that my hair is gray, yeah. So no, and then I've done the whole. I haven't gone to work in a month and a half, grown out the beard, and I like it, but it gets to a certain length, then it just gets too much to condition and keep from itching, and so I like it short. I like it like the 2-day stubble. And I would love to be able to go to work that way because I would keep the neck clean and keep it nice and trimmed.
Yeah.
No problem. But that's the official stance. And, it's kind of like, these airplanes, the same thing. Who owns the airplane? Not you, not me, nor would I want to. So if I'm supposed to fly it the way the operating procedures say to fly it, because the owner of the aircraft said, here, fly it like this and don't deviate, then I'm going to fly it like that and I'm not going to deviate. If I want to go and do brake maneuver over the airport to come in and land, I'm going to go buy myself a little piston-powered airplane and putz around all I want. But I'm not going to do it with 200 people in the back. So for those pilots out there that think you're still in the military, no, don't do brake maneuvers. When they clear you the visual, that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Still have to remain above glide path. But yeah, so thank you for bringing that up, Alex. The mask thing is with the association with the beards. It's definitely been a conversation. It's not like everyone's talking about it, but there are those that are really adamant that they want us to be able to have that option. So, good topic. Now, your upgrade training. Let's dive into that a little bit. Qualified upgrade. What's the difference between a qualified upgrade and just saying, hey, I got an upgrade?
So at Sandpiper, because we're flying the 175, we've been flying the 175 in the right seat. They have, I guess it's written into their AQP program that because we've been there, all we have to do is transition to the left seat and fly from the left seat. We know the speeds, we know the limitations, we know the systems. We've been flying it for, however many years that we've been, in that right seat. There's some guys that have been in that have been in the right seat for 5 years at Sandpiper. Not because of anything else. They just like the quality of life, and they didn't want to, upgrade. And now they're kind of like, all right, fine, I'll start my upgrade process so that they can start my flow process over to mainline. But all it really is it's basically an extended recurrent is the way that I've kind of been gathering it, the way that we do it. So we do a couple days of systems, like 3 days of systems, and then a couple days off, and then we roll right into the procedures trainer, the little touch panel, more than a paper tiger, if you want to call it that, where we can get like tactile feel on how to, do our flows and everything, do procedures validation, and then go into the sims. And sims are 6 days of sims, and that includes I'm on today's going to be day 2, so that includes 4 sims, maneuvers validation, and then your LOE.
Okay.
And then after that starts IOE.
And LOE is
hours.
line operating experience.
Yeah, we use some of the same acronyms that you guys do.
Yeah.
And
maneuvers
and
validation, that's where you're showing your ability to do single engine approaches, single engine V1 cuts, single engine aborts,
go arounds, stalls, all basically. If you want to consider it, your maneuvers validation is more of like check ride maneuvers for like a private pilot. I'll just use that, right? It's more of your maneuvers that you're doing, right? The stuff that, you're not actually going to see. And LOE is basically a flight that you're going to operate and you're going to have some abnormality happen. It's not an emergency, but it's an abnormality where you have to think and consider. And now that you're being a captain, think and consider the the safe outcome of where to take this plane in the air. If that means continuing on, or going to divert somewhere or something like that. Like yesterday we had we're both the my sim partner and I, we're both captains, so it's captain, which makes it a little easier. And when we got done with our lessons, we were doing visual approaches into LaGuardia. He did the not the it's changed. I want to say it's the expressway. It's the one where you come over like the
that's
water
gone.
tanks. Yeah.
And now
So
it's an
it's not the
RNAV.
express.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so we were doing that, and then we were doing. I did the river visual to LaGuardia, but like short final, like we got a cabin fire. You know what I mean? So it's one of those, like, what do you do in that situation? And it's like, well, we'll continue to land. Let's figure this out on the ground. His was like 300 feet. Like as we are getting ready to land, cabin fire went off, and we're like, okay, let's silence it. Let's get the plane on the ground and let's deal with it. And then mine was like, as I was turning final like 4.5 miles out, like I got the cabin smoke, and I'm like, let's figure everything out, get established, and then if we've got time, let's put out the fire and get all the stuff that we needed on the ground. So just stuff like that you'll see in an LOE situation where it's not a dire emergency, but it's something to consider that you may have to divert. And that's your check ride, if you want to call it that. And then you go out to the line and start flying from the left seat.
Yeah, the nice thing about AQP, or the Advanced Qualification Program, is that the maneuvers are no longer pass-fail. The maneuvers are complete or incomplete. So you're given an allotment of time, and you've had plenty of sim sessions beforehand, whether this is an upgrade training or a requalification training or recurrent. It's the same. You're going to have plenty of opportunity in the simulator with an instructor or a check airman of some kind to go over everything that's expected of you. And then when the day comes where you do your maneuvers validation, it's not a check ride. It's either, can you get it done? Like one or two things can be retrained, but really it's just, let me just make sure you're doing it right. The call outs are correct. The speeds, the all the procedures are being done appropriately. Then when you come back the next day and do your IOE, or initial operating experience, not IOE, it's MV. No. What's it called?
Which one? The LOE?
LOE, thank you. So when you do your line operation experience, when you walk into the simulator that day, they tell you, all right, I am not your sim instructor. I am going to facilitate what you need. ATC, flight attendant, air traffic control. I will not answer questions unless you're asking ATC. So it's supposed to be like you're in the real airplane flying a real flight from point A to point B. And every single airline and every single program that does this LOE always has an ambiguous fault that comes up. And you usually have like 4 different options. That way you're not just studying the one thing and, basically jumping through hoops. It could be 4 different things, at least for Legacy. That's the way they program it. And it's always an ambiguous thing. And they want to see that CRM, or crew resource management, is being utilized. TEM, or threat and error management, is being utilized. Someone's always flying the airplane. There's clear communication between the captain and the first officer, and ATC, and dispatch, and the flight attendants, and the passengers. And whether or not you divert or not, or continue, what they're trying to prevent is a pretty famous incident. I can't recall the details of it, but there's an incident where a landing indicator, or landing gear indicator, in the cockpit was faulty. It turned out it was the light bulb, one of the light bulbs of the gear down. And Terry, if you remember, just jump in. It was out, and all the pilots on the flight deck were so enthralled with the checklist and the procedures and the systems that nobody was flying the airplane. And it ended up, I believe that one crashed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I don't remember. We talked about it in we had a whole TEM class couple months ago, and that one was one of the ones that was talked about in there. That like there was no clear cut communication of who was flying the aircraft because once the indication went off, I think it was a 3 crew airplane, so they had the flight engineer, the first officer, and the captain. And I mean, like, I think the captain had the flight engineer go down in a panel underneath the cockpit and, look at something. And both of them are sucked into the actual indication. And they didn't make it.
and it turned out it was a light bulb. So
Yeah.
that's really where this all stems from. And it's not because of that one incident, but because it's a very common thing. When you do the same job day in, day out, you have expectation bias. You expect the aircraft to handle a certain way. You expect the ATC to talk to you a certain way. And when that expectation bias then goes away, there it is, Eastern Airlines Flight 401.
Look
Thank
at
you,
Terry.
He's the man. Yeah, when you expect something to go a certain way and it doesn't, there's a human factor or a startle factor. And the main thing is that you come back to focus. All right? You're got to come back to focus. The captain's job is to have the wide angle view of what's going on and manage it. And if that means, hey, first officer, you fly the airplane and talk on the radios, I'll run through the checklist and verbalize what I'm doing. And I want you to follow along when you can. And if you can't, just say I'm in the yellow or I'm in the red, and we'll take a pause and we'll make sure we're flying the airplane first, and then we'll handle everything else. Unless you're on fire, there's no need to do one of these dive bombs down at the airport. So that's exactly what this LOE is all about. I recently went through recurrent training. It was my second recurrent training as a captain. My story is actually a little interesting. So over at Legacy Airlines, when your base month, which is the month for which you are scheduled once a year to go to training, for me, it's May. I also am going to be a new Phoenix-based pilot as of May 2nd. I know that I'm going to be on reserve. So I thought, you know what? Let me go to training in April. It was actually Valerie who said, why are you commuting all that? Go to training in the middle of your last month in Los Angeles. That way you're not commuting as much. And I was like, oh, genius. So I went in and I bid for an April class, but I wanted it to be at the end of April. And just like PBS, or preferential bidding system, how we bid our schedules, you can go in to TTS, not TTS, but T something, I forget, training scheduling program. And you go in there and you can bid for your training. And I put like 3 or 4 different classes in Phoenix because that's where the left coast pilots go. They all go to Phoenix. They don't go to Dallas or Charlotte at the other training centers because it's closer, right? And you can only bid for Phoenix. And that's what I did. And I said, if I can't get these few classes at the end of the month, then pass me. And I'll just have a little bit more time to study, and I'll go in May, my regular time. Well, when the training schedules came out, I noticed that they had me second week of April, which was not convenient for me because I had plans. So I was like, this is kind of going to throw a wrench in the system, but let's see what happens. And so we were able to work around the schedule. And I thought, well, okay, I'll go. And a week before, they usually post what hotel you're given. And I had a question in my mind. I said, well, now that my address is in Arizona, in Phoenix, will they not give me a hotel for training? Because if you're so many miles from your training center, usually they go, well, you're just going to drive in. We're not going to give you a hotel. And I was kind of curious, like, did they give me a hotel? So a week before I was set to go to training, I looked in the program to see what hotel they may or may not have given me. And then I looked at it and I went, Charlotte, North Carolina? they sent me to Charlotte. Never have I ever been to Charlotte, to the training center there for Legacy Airlines. And I thought, this must be a mistake. I can't even bid that. Like, why would you give me something like for the furthest possible training center, I could possibly get? So I called the union and I said, hey, just a quick question in contract compliance. I said, this is what happened. I've never been to Charlotte before. I didn't even know I could bid Charlotte. I don't know why they gave it to me. Is this a mistake? Or he's like, oh no, they're doing that with LA and Phoenix flight crews. I guess the Phoenix training center is too busy and they can send you wherever they want, whenever they want, however they want. It's not like the schedules and all these laws and the contract language. This is training. They can send you wherever they want. I was like, well, okay, maybe they did me a favor. At first I was like kind of upset, going, why? I gotta go to Charlotte now? What the heck? But then I went, you know what? Maybe they did this because they know I just moved to Phoenix. At least this is what I like to think. And they said, hey, let's get this guy a hotel. And, Charlotte's not bad. Let's give him Charlotte. So sure enough, day one of ground school. Which one of you is LA based? What the hell are you doing here? That was me. The instructor's like, man, they keep sending you every class. I have at least one LA person in here. Like, yeah, I guess they're really full in Dallas and in Phoenix. And then he's like, yeah, actually, they are. And a lot of it is, you heard it here, folks. A lot of it is captain upgrades at Legacy Airlines. As a matter of fact, I spoke with the check airman out at the gate on one of my commutes, and he says, yep, been doing a lot of observations and IOEs on captain upgrades. He goes, not so much. He goes, there was a few months there where we were hiring new hires like crazy, and it was taking a long time. I think what they're trying to do is do a little catch up, a little regrouping with the schedules of the new hires. So they've kind of put hiring on pause for a little bit, and they're now catching up with all the captain upgrades. So a lot of captain upgrades, which is great if you're sitting in the left seat like yourself, Alex. Maybe
that's good. That's good that there's movement there.
Yeah, not just the movement, but your schedule, right? Because if more junior captains come up under you, you're getting so much closer to holding a line.
So for us, where it stands right now is we hired a lot of direct entry captains. And I remember having Terry kind of sitting there to himself thinking, he goes, man, I might go to Legacy to Sandpiper with the amount of money that they're throwing out. But we hired a lot of direct entry guys, and they're junior guys. And they're junior to me. So when I walk out of training and I get that first month of reserve, just basically because, I'm missing a bid window, once I'm done, I'm going to hold a line in Dallas.
Right.
It's not going to be a great line, but it's a line.
Yeah.
So
quality
it's better,
of life.
it's better than, having to sit.
Yeah.
100%. And that's part of the reason why I held out for a while, is because, Tony alluded to it earlier. I live in Lubbock, right? Lubbock is a 45-minute flight from Dallas. That's perfect. At the time when I moved out to Lubbock and all this stuff was going on, and the only base that was really open for captain upgrades was Chicago. I'm not two-legging it to Chicago just to put a forced stripe on. So I held out. Dallas opened. I got Dallas. Now I'm going to be able to hold at least a halfway decent quality of life.
Yeah.
The only problem is with Sandpiper is you get guys that aren't going to hit the flow, and they're going to stay lifers at Sandpiper, and the movement stagnates a little bit. So
yeah, you have a select percentage at the top of the list that aren't going anywhere because their quality of life, they like the way everything is working out. They get to drive to work, or one leg quick flight to work, weekends off, 4 or 5 weeks vacation a year. They get to watch their kids go to college, and
some of these guys
games.
Some of these guys are older too. You know what I mean? Like they came over to Sandpiper in their late 40s, early 50s. So that for them, they're staying here because they don't want to have to go through a whole, new training cycle. They don't want to have to go sit reserve somewhere. They don't want to have to do all that to work their way up to probably never hold the captain seat again. You know, that
Right.
they rather stay and, like you're saying, have the quality life, have the drive or one leg to work, have weekends off, have basically their choice of schedule, which I get it. I 100% do. It
Right.
just, it slows our stagnation for moving up. The
Yeah.
only way that people get out of here is getting flowed or getting to one of the others like Transglobal or Acme.
Right. Right. Now, quality of life is something that we talk about quite a bit on the show. And Terry, you were telling us a little bit about your vacation bidding. Now, last month you had some vacation, you took a family trip, right? But how did that all pan out with how you ended up going about bidding for the month?
Yeah. So it was actually this month. I had in April, I had 2 weeks of vacation, and our union puts out a calculator. Basically, it's an Excel spreadsheet, but you plug in your numbers, like when your vacation days are, how many days you have, um, and your pay rates and all that. Y- you enter that stuff into the calculator, and it will tell you how much credit you will get if you bid a line versus how much credit you will get if you bid reserve. Um, and for me, it was about 15 hours more credit to bid reserve, and uh, and then have those 2 weeks of vacation basically in the middle of the month. So I had the way my schedule was, I had the first day of the month I was on reserve, and that was kind of a carry-in block from last month's reserve. Then I had a few days off. Then I had one 4-day block of reserve. Then I had vacation. I came back from vacation. I had another 4-day block of reserve. And on each of those 4-day blocks of reserve, they used me for a 3-day trip. And the nice thing about our contract is when you get back from an international trip, they can't assign you anything within 24 hours. So basically, that fourth day, you're useless.
Mm.
Um, so I worked 2 3-day trips this month. Uh, so what is that? 6 days in a 30-day bid period, and the rest of the month was off. And I credited 99 hours for the month. So
See,
yeah,
there's three phases of flying that pilots go through. One is paying somebody to fly. Two is getting paid to fly. And three is trying to not fly and get paid the most. And that's where
that's right.
Terry's at right now. Is phase
That's
three.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm seniority wise and in base equipment seat. I'm at about 86% here in DC on
Oh.
my fleet,
Mhm.
and so typically it's somewhere around the bottom 20%. Will get reserve, but you have a lot of more senior people who will bid reserve to get the days off they want, or for whatever reason they have. Like maybe they're a commuter. We have these things called long call lines where you can be on reserve, but you only get trips with 24 hours notice or whatever. I forget what the stipulation is, but basically it gives you enough time to commute, um, instead of running the threat of having to sit short call. You're always going to be on long call. So we have guys who bid reserve because they like to be at their home in wherever Pittsburgh. And oh, well, I got a 4-day block of reserve coming up, and they call you the day before and they say, hey, we got a trip for you. You've got plenty of notice, plenty of time to commute in, no problem. So we have a lot of guys who are above that 80% who will bid reserve to do things like that. And honestly, for a lot of people, it works out to a lot more time at home than bidding a line. Me, I live 25 minutes from the airport, and my kids are young. I want to be home. I don't try to pick up trips when I'm on reserve. I do my best to get paid to not fly.
Yeah.
And it works out pretty well. Now, I did bid a line for next month, um, because once we start into the summer season, our flying picks up significantly, and reserve can tend to turn into a bit of a goat rope. So, um, in this situation, going into the summer season, I feel it's a little bit more advantageous to have a line. So, and I'm right at that point where I can still get one. It's not the best line. Like, uh, when the awards came out, I have five trips where I am the relief pilot to Edinburgh. I told my wife, I was like, yeah, I may as well get an apartment there, call me the mayor of Edinburgh,
There you go.
because I'm going to be there a whole bunch. But I managed to trade out of at least one of those, and I hope to trade out of a few more, and hopefully get a flying seat at some point. But yeah, it's all about quality of life, man. Trying to make that the best you can.
Yeah. Now, as you're explaining your bidding strategies, there's something that came to my mind, that there are those that are very senior that bid short call. And they bid short call because short call is the absolute last pilot to be called, because the first thing they're going to do is pop an open trip in open time to see if somebody picks it up. And you have these windows where you can pick up and you can bid, and everything now is on an app. Like, there's no more like going into Dex, the AS400 system, and going in there and putting in code, change, /star, asterisk, whatever. Now it's all apps and websites. And so you can put in, you go look at a trip trade system and you go, oh, well, I got this trip and I want to trade it for that trip, or I want to go on my TTOT or open time trading system and go, hey, there's an open trip over here. I'm going to pick that up, or what have you. And there are those pilots that know that once those trips don't get filled, then they go into what they call long call reserve pilots. So the day before, there's a window where, okay, you can't pick up these trips anymore because now we're going to give them to our long call reserve pilots. And those pilots have, I believe, 12 hours notification minimum. Usually it's much more. And they go, hey, you just got awarded a trip tomorrow. Now, as a reserve pilot on long call, you can bid for those trips. You can say, hey, I see there's a trip open. If nobody else wants it, that's more senior to me, I'd rather have that trip, because if there's 5 open trips and 4 of them are crap, and you're like, I don't want those 4, and I know I'm going to get called because I can see the list on this app and I know where I fall, I'm probably the second pilot to be called for the day that I'm legal for these trips. So you can go, well, if I'm going to get called no matter what, I can see it on the app because I'm the second lowest seniority on long call, and there's 4 open trips or 5 open trips, I'm going to proffer or prefer to have that trip. So you put that in the computer system and you go, okay, I prefer to have that trip. And if I can't have that trip, my second option will be this trip over here, because maybe those are commutable, or maybe those have better layovers, or maybe there are no red eyes in those. And then if I can't get those 2, then just pass. I don't want those other crappy trips. So if they assign you one of those trips that you wanted, boom, you got a ting, you got awarded your trip. That's your notification. If you got awarded a trip that you did not request, now it's called junior man assignment. So now you're on reserve and this is what you got. Okay. And they'll send you a message and you have to reply to the message saying, hey, yeah, I got the message. Just to make sure that they know that you're supposed to be there. And it's no phone calls anymore. You're not going to get a phone call from crew scheduling or crew tracking or anything like that. You're just going to get a notification in the app, and it's going to say, hey, you were a junior man assigned this trip, and you click that acknowledge, and that means you acknowledge that you're supposed to be there at that time tomorrow. Now, if they run out of long calls, or if there are some people on long call that are only good for maybe 1 or 2 days, and it's a bunch of 3 and 4 day trips, well, they're not legal for those trips. So now it goes to short call. Or maybe there was a long call pilot that didn't accept or didn't acknowledge the fact that he or she may have been assigned a trip. And now the time has elapsed where they are supposed to acknowledge within this window. And crew scheduling calls them and goes, hey, you didn't acknowledge this trip. Did you see that you had a trip? And they go, oh, I'm sick. And they go, oh, shit. Okay, so now that trip falls under the short call window. So now the short call pilots get called out. Now, if the short call pilot is on short call and the day before is their day off, they can't get notified until midnight 01. So now they get a phone call at midnight 01 going, I have a 6 a.m. departure out of Phoenix for you. And you're like, okay, okay, I'll be there. So then you have to like take a look at your schedule and you get the short call. Now, because you're the last one on the totem pole to get called, a lot of senior pilots will opt for this and they'll say, okay, not only is the monthly guarantee, as Terry mentioned, higher on short call than long call, as a little bonus to request to be on short call. But also you're probably not going to fly that much because on a normal operation, on a normal day, most of those flights were either picked up or offered to a long call pilot. You're the last resort. We don't have what they call airport standby, at least not at Legacy Airlines. Now, there are other airlines that do have airport standby where if you're the bottom of the barrel, yeah, I know Sandpiper. Does it still have it there, Alex? Yeah. So if you're bottom of the barrel, like when I first upgraded to LaGuardia at Sandpiper, I was second from the bottom on the list for captains. So I knew that I was either going to get LaGuardia or JFK airport standby. And I would always bid JFK because the guy that was just under me, Chris, he would bid LaGuardia. And we had roughly the same days off. We were both commuters. And so I knew if he was there, I could just look at the list. I would go, well, let him have LaGuardia. His crash pad's across the street. My crash pad's closer to JFK anyway. So I would bid JFK. And then at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd hop on a city bus and I'd ride the bus for $2.50 to the Lefferts station. And I'd hop on the free air train and I'd go to the crew room and sign in on the computer and sit in a Lazy Boy recliner in a quiet room with my phone resting on me in case crew scheduling called me. And then maybe 1 out of 10 times that I did that, they'd actually call me and go, yeah, I got a turn for you. The rest of the time I'd get paid to sit at the airport, and you had to be on airport property. That's the only caveat, within walking distance to your gate. So since Legacy Airlines doesn't have airport standby, they only have short call. That's why line holders have 3 hours and 3.5 hour sits at hubs that are not their own. That's why an LA pilot will fly into Charlotte, Dallas, or Miami and sit at the airport for 3 hours between their next flight. And they go, this schedule sucked, 3 hours sits. It's because they don't have airport standby. So you're giving up the efficiency of your sequence. I mean, I'd rather show up to the airport, fly, and go and have a longer layover and then recover than fly, sit for 3 hours, fly, sit for 3 hours, fly, be legal by an hour to 2, and then go have a short layover somewhere. I don't like that. I'd rather have the first. But that's why we have 3 hour sits, because then if there's a misconnect or a sick or something, they can go, hey, I'm reassigning you. You're going to go fly this other flight. And now I've got 3 hours to call somebody from home and say, hey, come to the airport. You're recovering. I got a flight for you. So it's give and take. Everything has its pros and cons. So because we don't have airport ready, we have line holder reserve, which is what I call it, a 3 hour sits. Now, Terry, do you guys have...
Is that legal in your contract, by the way, what they do?
Absolutely. They were doing it at Sandpiper. They were doing it before Miami was a base on the Embraer 145. Miami was ATR base for executive.
Mm-hmm.
And before it was a Sandpiper base on the Embraer 145, they would have 3.5 hour sits. So you'd leave either whether you're Dallas based or Chicago based, you would have these trips that would go through Miami, and you sit in Miami for like 3 hours before you went to your layover in Savannah or Nassau or wherever you were going. And that was the reason why, because it wasn't a base yet. So they had time to fly people in. And it worked so well that Legacy Airlines started adopting the same thing because they, again, don't have airport ready. Now, Terry, you guys over at Transglobal, you guys have airport ready, or what do you guys have?
We still do, but it is in our current contract. It has gotten prohibitively expensive for the company to use it. So for us, generally, what happens is, and I was looking to see if this was written in the contract, and I don't remember, but generally, if you're on short call, they will call you in. They can call you in to come sit field standby, and it's usually to protect a flight they already know or they suspect they're going to have an issue with. You're already on short call, so you're already on the 2.5-hour leash, and they'll say, "Hey, we need you to come in and sit field standby to protect this flight." It costs them 4 hours of ad pay. So, if you're going to call me in to sit field standby, that's great. I got no issue with that because you're going to pay me a significant sum of money to do that. And then in addition to that, if I'm on reserve and I'm not making guarantee, that's great. I still get that 4 hours of ad pay, whether I operate the trip or not, because you have called me in to go sit at the airport. So it's expensive for them to do that. In addition to that, our reassignment rules can make it expensive for the company to reassign people. We've got called triggered versus untriggered reassignment, and don't ask me to explain how all that works because I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But basically, if you're a line holder and you are reassigned, there is a I forget if it's triggered or untriggered, but one of those requires the company to pay you 125% of your original trip's value.
Nice.
Yeah, it gets very expensive for them to reassign people. So they've been pretty good. Like since the new contract's gone into effect, I've only been called out to sit field standby twice. And both times before I even got to the airport, they were calling me saying, "Yeah, you're on the trip. It's yours." But, you still get that extra 4 hours of pay. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah, they do.
That's awesome.
They do that too for us because pilots would say, "Hey, I'm a line holder. I'm not required to have my phone on. I'm going to just leave it on silent or not even turn it on, whatever." And crew scheduling would call. Of course, we all have the technology that there's a different ringer with crew scheduling than everything else. We've talked about that on previous shows. The Imperial March from Star Wars is a common one.
That's mine.
Yeah, mine too. And so
It's mine too.
yeah. So
I have PTSD. My wife played that song last night. I had PTSD. I'm like, what?
Don't answer
what
it.
Happened? No.
So in order to prevent that, the company in the new contract said, okay, if you get reassigned in the middle of a trip, it's 125% pay. Done. Doesn't matter. Just if it's in a reassignment leg, they code it as such, and you get paid a little extra. So thank you for sharing that with us, Terry, and Alex as well. I know, Alex, you got to get going because you got sim training coming up, and you're gonna make your wife drive back by herself. Man, that's really
Whoa!
brutal.
Not wife yet. Not wife yet.
He's like, whoa.
Fiance, which I'll text you guys in the group about that. But,
you gotta hurry up, man.
Yeah, I know. Hey, we're trying to play catch up here to you, Tony. So,
I think you should wait until like the day before the baby is due, and then just like have the water break as soon as you say I do. It's gonna be amazing. I'm just saying. Rush to the hospital.
If it were only that easy to just time it when the baby is like, yeah, hey, the water broke. Oh, okay. In the hospital, I do.
I got your solution, dude. I got your solution. Okay, this is what you do. You go to the due date. You put the wedding at the due date and put, pending, then the day before, go and get her acupuncture. A good acupuncturist will be able to induce labor within 24 hours of being poked.
And the baby will be, like 3 days late, and we'll have more issues. And so
It could be a 3-day wedding. I don't know. Anyway, but no, I know you got to get going, Alex. Oh, by the way, earlier we mentioned the expressway visual, and I know there might be some new aviators out there going, what the heck is an expressway visual in a LaGuardia? Well, anybody that's been in and out of LaGuardia over the last decade knows the expressway visual. It was a charted visual approach to runway 31 in LaGuardia, and the way you came in is whenever you'd come up from the south, they flew you right over Queens, and there were these 2 ginormous white gas tanks, or propane tanks, natural gas tanks, whatever they were. And they'd say, do you have the tanks? And it's right there on the chart. And you say, yes, I have the tanks. All right, clear the expressway visual. So as long as you had the visibility, you would fly to the tanks. You'd make a right turn. You'd fly over the expressway, which anybody that knows the area knows it's not a straight line. And you'd go over Shea Stadium. Yeah, I said it. And then, you hook a right, and then over the Home Depot building at 250 feet, you turn final, you land the airplane on a very short runway. And it was one of the funnest charted visual approaches in the system. Well, they got rid of it. It's now known as RNAV GPS X-ray runway 31. So for those of you that have JEP charts, NOS charts, or ForeFlight, which that's another topic. Is ForeFlight going to be around much longer now that Boeing's selling it? I don't know. But that's another day. So yeah, you can take a look at it. It's pretty much the same depiction. It's just now you have GPS coordinates that guide you on that one.
Yep. Which so in our JEPs, I don't know about yours, we still have it's got the charted visual in there. But it does say use the what you're saying, RNAV, GPS, X-ray for backup guidance.
Oh, really?
Basically, more or less.
Yeah, we don't have the expressway visual anymore on our Jeppesen.
We do. We're special.
Snap a screenshot of that for me and send it to me. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. We did that, and then I guess they have the river visual, which is basically where you come up over Liberty Island, Ellis Island, come up basically up the Hudson, not down the Hudson. The opposite way that Sully landed, and then basically hit the ILS into the other side and come in and land basically just past Central Park.
That was a fun one too, especially when the weather was questionable. You just got to look out for those helicopters. Oh, too soon? Shit.
So Army guys, can't trust them.
Right?
Nothing from Terry.
Terry's.
I have no comment.
And we're going to talk about that here coming up on the show. Here we probably have about 20 minutes left of the show. So, but Alex, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining us. Please give Rachel a big hug. From myself and from Valerie, and we'll talk soon.
We will. Thank you for having me. Rachel says, hi. She's up and moving around now. I will say this, Tony. Congratulations. I know we haven't talked about it yet, but I'll spill the beans. Tony got married, and he didn't tell any one of us. So
I didn't tell anybody.
Congratulations.
There's still a lot of people that don't know, so I may have to edit this out. No, we kept it private. We kept it very, very much in the park, and it was kind of like, hey, what do you want to do this weekend? I know.
Let's get married.
So yeah,
we got nothing going on. Let's just go to the courthouse. Let's get married.
Yeah, it was pretty close to that. And the reason, and she's amazing. The reason she goes, I'd rather save the money. And let's just have once we get the yard done and possibly the pool goes in, who knows? But once all that's done, maybe later in the year or maybe early next year, we'll have a big party. We'll invite all our friends and family, and we'll give them the opportunity to get the time off and come. And I love it. She goes, I want to be married. I don't want to be, Beyonce anymore. So
that's what we did. And the end of next month is 20 years for us. So
20 years. Congratulations. That's amazing. Yeah. And I hopefully I can get 20, 30, or even 40 years out of this one and be an old man. And,
Wait,
change our
Okay, doing the
diapers.
math. I'm just saying, doing some math here. If
90.
you get 40 years, yeah, I'm
90
just saying that
years
puts you
old.
at 90.
Yes, my diaper's full. Damn it.
Get some grandkids helping to change you at that point.
And that might happen. That might happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, Alex, peace out.
Gentlemen, thank you. I'll see you guys
See you,
later.
man.
I'll keep text you guys and let you guys know.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. See you guys.
Bye. So Terry, we got a little bit of time left. We mentioned at the beginning of the show that we were going to talk about the rash of incidents. Now, I don't want to go into details and play Monday morning quarterback about why these things happen. We kind of alluded to a couple of those incidences that happened recently here in the past few moments. But it's definitely challenging to be an aviator right now because your friends and family that are not in aviation always are the first to ask questions. Oh, are you okay? It's like, well, yeah, why? Well, I saw the crash. And yeah, that was a completely different company on a different airplane. But thank you for thinking of me. Yeah, we're okay. And it did hit hard. One of our wholly owns had a major incident in DCA. We had the really, really, really hard landing in Toronto from another carrier. Between the rotor aircraft incidents that have been happening and everything else. It just seems like we're under a cycle of a lot of aviation disasters happening all at once. Do you think that it's unusual, or is this just, other than a few major headliners out there, do you think it's just normal and then the media is kind of got their magnifying glass on aviation right now?
I think the spotlight's on. And with the spotlight on, the media is gonna find every single little thing that they can, and they're gonna illuminate it. Um, there are around the country and around the world, there are airplane incidents that happen on the daily with every company. Uh, there are minor things like medical. Well, I guess they're not really minor, but they're incidents such as medical emergencies that happen and airplanes have to divert because somebody on board is having some sort of medical issue. That's one thing. And then with the recent crash and the hard landing, um, like I said, the spotlight is on to where you had that airplane that took off from the West Coast, got halfway to Asia, and had to turn around because one of the pilots didn't have a passport, had forgotten their passport, and that immediately gets blown up in the media, like, oh my goodness, what are these pilots doing? And it's, I mean. It's easy to forget your passport. It's easy to forget your badge, or you walk out of your house and you didn't have it. So most of us have developed routines and checklists, if you will, for before we leave the house to make sure, what was that mantra from the movie? Spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch. You got it all, right?
Yep.
One of the things my checklist consists of passport, badge, iPad, and I've recently had to add my eyeglasses to it because I've walked out of the house too many times without those.
Yeah.
I don't require them yet, but I'm almost there, so I pretty much need them. So yeah, but every airline in this country, especially, has incidents every day that you'll never hear about. Um, Take off from an airport, minor abnormality, as we were talking about earlier, abnormality happens. It's probably not wise to continue. We're going to turn around and land back at our hub airport where we just took off from, where we have maintenance, where we can reaccommodate the passengers, and potentially get on a new airplane or have this minor issue fixed and take off again. And sometimes some of that stuff is getting highlighted, but yeah, it's just, the magnifying glass is out there. And I honestly, from my experience, I don't see there being any more incidents than there have been in the past. Just this year, we've had a couple of major ones.
Yeah. Well, we had a streak that went from the Colgan crash up till most recently the DCA crash with no fatalities in the United States. That is, I believe I read that was the best safety in aviation streak in history, to go all those years and not have a single accident induced fatality in the US.
Yeah.
General aviation is a whole other bag, and there's not as much regulation with general aviation. Obviously, we know that, these things happen all the time. Local news, if you watch local news, there's always Cessna or Piper aircraft or, VTOL Bonanza, crash at a local airport. After these past couple months of media hype on aviation safety, it seems like everything's going national now. And, as a experienced aviator with both of us with 20 to 30 years out there on the flight line, we know that it's not unusual, a lot of these incidents. It is a tragedy every single time. If you are in aviation long enough, you will know someone that will perish due to an accident, either involving an airplane or around an airplane. So it's a relatively safe thing to do, to be a passenger on an airplane, to fly an airplane, even a small airplanes. It's a relatively safe thing to do. I believe you're more likely to win the lottery twice or get struck by lightning twice than you are to die in an airplane. And you are, like, I think it's like a staggering statistic. It's like 4 in 10 odds to get in a car accident that involves a fatality in your lifetime. So don't get me wrong. Aviation and the automotive industry both have gotten 100 times safer, if not more, over the past few decades. However, driving down to the local Safeway or AM/PM is far more dangerous than taking a flight. So don't let that discourage you. Anybody listening to this podcast already knows this. It's kind of a obvious statement, but yeah, I agree with you, Terry. The incidents that we've been reading about, with the exception of one or two, are just, I hate to say it, but nothing really to write home about. They're just, things happen. Mechanical things break. So in terms of...
and then the problem in aviation is when we have an accident, it's instantly a tragedy, right? Because you're talking at a minimum, at least at the passenger carrying airlines, you're talking about a minimum of a 50-seat airplane, right? Minimum 53 people have the potential to lose their lives.
Yeah.
And that happens at once. Yeah, it's a pretty major tragedy. But it happens so rarely that, yeah, that's why it is magnified. It just doesn't happen very often. And that's a testament to the level of safety that we operate at.
Yeah.
In the U.S. with our airlines.
Well, not only that, I mean, we were talking earlier on the show about recurrent training. What other career field do you know that has to go back to recurrent training at a minimum annually, if not more, every 9 months? And you're going through not every possible scenario, but the most important ones. And most of the time, you're not going to hear about, aircraft had an accident because they did a go around. Aircraft had an engine failure. No. You're going to see something that's totally obscure, completely probably took the pilots by surprise, maybe total mechanical failure that could not be recoverable. These are the things that make headlines because they're so rare. The other stuff, go-arounds, I mean, I have nervous flyers in the family, and I tell them, look, even if the airplane goes around, even if it loses an engine, it's got two. It only needs one. I mean, you may not be able to fly as fast and as high, but it still flies. And even if you lost both, it still has wings. It's a glider. You can glide it. You've seen an Airbus, a clean configuration, what the glide ratio is on that thing. I mean, sometimes we have a hard time slowing down and getting down. ATC's like, hey, use those speed brakes. I'm like, sir, that's when I make a mistake, not when you make a mistake. But
That's right.
yeah. So as an aviator, I think the point here that I really was hoping to make today was, as an aviator, when our family and friends ask us about all these incidences, and even in the future, it's always better to take a very calm approach to it to help settle the fear that is being perpetuated by the media for the public. Saying, look, these kind of things happen all the time. The media is hypersensitive about it. We're under the microscope. And this continues to be the safest time in aviation's history. So, yes, there has been some incidents that have made headlines that have been extremely tragic, but it's still the safest time in history.
Yeah. I mean, you said it right there. The media generates sensationalized headlines to generate clicks, which generates revenue. That's how they make their money.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I had the same thing. I had friends reaching out like, "Oh my God, my wife was on a plane and they did a go around and it was almost out of control all the way down, and then they did it. The engines went to full blast and blah blah blah." I'm like, look, that is a normal maneuver that we practice thousands of times.
Yeah. I blame
We
fluoride.
brief it.
I blame the fluoride they put in the water in the 1990s and early 2000s, because now we have empirical evidence that fluoride, as a byproduct of waste, fluoride lowers your IQ. I just was listening to a podcast yesterday that this doctor was on there, and the CDC, they were hounding the CDC. But what about the statistic? What is this? The CDC has published this. The CDC has published that fluoride makes you less intelligent, and we're giving it to our kids. We're putting it in their teeth every time they go to the dentist. We're putting it in the water, and it's lowering their IQ points by like 10 to 15. And they would not. They published it, but they wouldn't talk about it. So, yeah, between that and social media, the illusion of intimacy that you get from social media, I'm actually, I don't know if listeners out there maybe have noticed, but I've kind of disappeared for a few months with social media and with everything else. I've been busy. I'm building stuff and doing tile work and all kinds of stuff. I don't miss it, and I think it'll be one of those things that I check once a week.
I'm with you. Social media is it might be the downfall of our society. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hope not, but
I hope not. But yeah, we just have to tell our children and show them and teach them better, to be critical thinkers.
Can't believe everything you see.
Calm down, relax. It's okay.
Yeah.
The sky is not falling. It'll all work itself out. And I think you have to have a little bit of faith. And I'm not talking necessarily about one religion or the other, but you have to have faith in humanity, faith in yourself, faith in society, I mean, stuff happens all the time. And sometimes it happens to you. Sometimes it happens around you. Either way, I mean, it's all about how you react to it. And if you stay calm and go, yeah, that sucked that happened, but how do I move on from this? How do I make this better? Problem, solution. Let's figure this out. And if you have that mindset, whether that be in aviation or with your family or in life, I think that's the way to go. And those that can keep calm and carry on are the ones that are going to dictate how we are seen in our future generations.
Flight 209er, you are cleared for takeoff.
Roger. Huh?
LA departure frequency 123.9er.
Roger. Huh? Request vector. Over. What?
Flight 209er, clear for vector 324.
We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Tower radio clearance over. That's Clarence over.
With that said, before we go, I wanted to talk about some feedback. Now it's been a few months since we had a show, and I can't promise you that they're going to be picking up with any regularity, but I promise I will make every effort to continue producing the show. It is, and for me, and I can also say for my co-hosts here, Terry included, that it's absolutely a lot of fun to do. We put a lot of heart and soul into it. My best friends in the world have come from this. Roger I've known a very long time. Terry I've known a very long time. We all know Alex's journey. He went from being a mentee to now a friend. And even Kyle, who occasionally graces us with his presence. He's so busy, that young man. But I'm going to give him a hard time because he said he was going to be here today. What are you going to do? Just because you don't feel good? Come on, Kyle. But no, and we love getting the feedback. And so this really is like, it's my baby. The podcast is my baby. So without further ado on this rant, let's talk about this feedback. So I got an email from Paul. Paul writes, "Hi, Anthony," or "Hi, Tony and crew. You were talking about walking through the airport and people not paying attention while on their phones. I thought it was hilarious when you said you would just stop and they would bump into you. I used to work at a power plant near Pittsburgh. They banned people walking while looking at their cell phones. You can look, but first you have to stop and make sure you're safe. Finish looking or texting, then proceed to walk. What was really awesome is that anyone could coach anyone. For example, a brand new person could coach the most senior leadership without question in this practice without fear of getting into trouble. All in the interest of walking safely. On another note, I was wondering if there would be any way to solve this controller shortage, possibly by getting rid of the age requirement. I think you have to be younger than 35 years old to be hired. Well, what if you're older, say 50, for example? Are you going to be really that bad at doing this if they hire you at 50? What's that all about? Thanks for the awesome show, Paul." Now, Terry, you're kind of in the controller mecca of the United States, aren't you? Over DCA area. There's a lot of history there, with controllers and strikes and Ronald Reagan. But don't call it Reagan National. Controllers.
Don't call it Reagan.
No, side note, I was a brand new hire, flying with a senior captain over at Sandpiper. We're flying into DCA, and I'm studious, young aviator, eager. I still had all my dark hair. And I looked at the chart, and the chart said the name of the airport, Reagan National. So when the approach controller switched me over to the tower, I checked in because I was working the radios, pilot monitoring, and I said, Reagan National, this is Sandpiper 123 on a visual, runway 19. And the controller responded with, "Reagan, huh? Well, I guess I can let that go. You're clear to land runway 19. And the captain immediately looked at me and like, "What did you do?" And he got on the radio and he said, "He's new." She's like, "Yeah, I figured." And I'm like, "What? What'd I do?" And that's when I learned the history there. So if you don't know the history and know what I'm talking about, just Wikipedia, you'll figure it out. Google it. But yeah, the age requirement is there because if they're going to invest a lot of money, because being a controller and being a pilot is not much different. One is in the airplane and one is behind the screen in a little room. I highly recommend that if you have not seen the movie Pushing Tin, that you figure out, download that, and watch that immediately. And you can see some what airplane is to aviation, Pushing Tin is to air traffic controllers. It's a hilarious movie. It's Angelina Jolie's first film. I think that's where she met Billy Bob. And, some great actors in it. Some really, really funny one-liners in there too. But yeah, that age requirement could probably be raised. I don't know, 50, because if you're going to train somebody, unless they're paying for their training, or I don't know how that works, but usually it's a government job. And so government jobs come with government pensions, come with a lot of perks. So they always said, yeah, you have to be below a certain age to become an air traffic controller, because it takes a long time to actually get to the point where you can actually work a screen at an airport or TRACON. So the funny thing is, when I first was leaving my first career, I was in management for a wholesaler. And I told my boss, yep, I got my private, I'm working on my instrument, and I'm going to quit my job, sell the house, get rid of the picket fence, and I'm going to move to Phoenix and learn how to fly airplanes and go work for an airline someday. And he told his staff that, I was leaving in a meeting. And one of the ladies in the office pulled me aside and said, my husband is an Albuquerque Center TRACON controller. He said, whatever you do, don't be a pilot. He can get you into a school, or at least, suggest you go to do the interview with them, and you can become an air traffic controller. You're young enough. You're going to make the same money. You're going to get your breaks every 15 to 20 minutes. You're going to be very much controlled. You'll get a pension. At the airlines, you're not going to get any of that. They're going to work you. You're going to work maximum hours. You're not going to get much rest. You're never going to be home. With an air traffic control job, you can be home every night or every morning or whatever it is. And, they're not going to make you work late one night and early the next day and all this stuff. And you could do that. And I was 20 something years old and really arrogant. And I went, what do I want to look at a computer screen and play video games all day for? I want to fly the airplane, which, it's true. I wanted to fly the airplane. I didn't have to be such an asshole about it. She didn't take that very nicely. Warranted. Yeah, TRACON is an air traffic control jobs take a lot of training, and that's why. Now, with the shortage, yes, Paul, I think that they could probably have more incentive programs out there, maybe raise the age a little higher. Some TRACONs are private facilities, and I think their age requirements are a little bit different. Correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, if you know about this, but there's a private facility, contracted out towers, and then there's like the government-controlled ATC facility. So it just depends on where you're coming from, what your background is. Sometimes it's easier to get into the private sector. The problem is those private sector jobs could disappear overnight, and there's not much protection there. So,
Yeah, so the age is 55, and part of that is training. But I think what I was told once upon a time was the major reason for that age restriction was like cognitive decline, right? And I I think that somewhere along the line, the FAA is going to have to reconcile, especially if they decide to move forward with increasing age 65 to age 67 or whatever the case may be. If they go down that road, I think they also will have to look at the big argument for that right now, number one is ICAO, but number two, ICAO's logic is cognitive decline, as we age. And if that is part of the logic behind keeping the controller age limit at 55, then that's going to have to be revisited as well. Because,
yeah,
I mean, we let 64-and-a-half-year-olds fly wide bodies around the world. I
Yeah.
don't see why we can't let a 60-year-old sit behind a scope.
Right. Well,
at,
Paul's talking a little bit
a
about
center.
the age to start. So you have to be 35 years or younger than 35 years in order to get a job with ATC. So what that all entails is, if they're going to train you and invest all this time, money, and resources,
Sure.
they want to make sure you're going to be around a while because of the
They want to get
lower
at least 20
retirement age.
years.
Right. So
Right.
they want to
get
have
at least
20 years out of you. Right. So if they start you at 50 and now you're required to retire at 55, it's a waste of money on their behalf
Yeah.
for the training, and you're not going to get a pension. They want 20 years for a pension at the government. If you don't put 20 years in, just like in the military, you're not going to get your full pension. So
Yeah, that makes sense. And 50 may be a little bit of a stretch. But The whole thing with I know they do a similar thing when it comes to federal law enforcement. Like you have to be younger than, I want to say it's 37
Oh, really?
to get a job in federal law enforcement, because they want to be able to get 20 years out of you, number one. And I think the mandatory retirement age is like 57 or something like that. I don't know exactly, but
Yeah.
I know there was an age limit. I think they only made exceptions to that. If you were like prior military, you can go a little bit beyond that age. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Get your credit. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Paul, for writing in. I appreciate that. Sorry it took so long for us to get a chance to talk about it, but there you go. There's our 2 cents anyway. Another write-in from Andrew Fishboy Douglas. He wrote in, Aviator Tony, I've been on a little hiatus listening to the podcast, but when I caught back up with the most recent episode, news of your divorce and move to Phoenix broke my heart. I can definitely empathize with that, as I was transitioning out of the Navy and planning to go to the airlines when my wife suddenly passed while I was on deployment, and absolutely shocked me when I read this. I'm so sorry for your loss. I recently got myself together enough to move out of San Diego, and I just landed in Phoenix for the first time, being so as someone who has been there with these life changes that are more than earth shattering. Keep pushing forward and take it one day at a time. Sounds like it's looking up for you with the bid to Phoenix, and I am happy to hear that. I am back to being a Valley local now, and would love to meet up with you if you ever have time here in the Valley. It's always nice to connect with people that have common interest and similar experiences. Very respectfully, Andrew Fishboy Douglas. Now, Andrew, thank you for sharing your contact information. I am going to be reaching out to you soon. I would like to do a meetup, actually, maybe here in the Valley, and have maybe some of my co-hosts fly out, because I have plenty of space here for them to crash and us to party, and like rock stars or pilots or however pilots party. But thank you. I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. Absolutely devastating. But I'm going to text you very soon here, probably at the end of this recording, and you'll have me, Aviator Tony, at least here in the Valley, that you could always call on. So this is what we do for our listeners. I mean, just staying connected. It's a very, 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 very small industry. I've been saying this from day one, that, you be careful. Don't burn bridges. Be kind to each other. Be respectful to each other. Do your best to stay calm and carry on, because the person that you may have a problem with right now might be your boss tomorrow. That flight attendant that's giving you a hard time, being rude or whatever, and you're like, oh, man, she might be the director of something in the flight department someday. And then she goes, I remember you. You were mean to me. You don't want that. You don't want that. You want to, always take the higher ground in this industry. And the people, you could fly with them one time, once, and generate a lifetime of respect for each other and friendships just once. That's all it takes. Sometimes you fly with people 5, 6, 7 times. You just don't vibe. That's okay. You're professional. You do your job. And you say, hey, have a safe drive home. I'll see you on the next one. And that's normal. But don't be the asshole, because we all know those guys or gals. Don't be that guy. This is a small industry, a very small community. I love it when I'm walking in the airport and all of a sudden I hear, Tony! What? Who's that? What? And I'm like, hey, man, you did my IOE. Just this week, I was in Chicago, my old stomping ground, and I'm walking with my new hire FO, and we're walking to go grab a burrito beach. And I look over, and it's Mike Philippek, and I'm like, Mike. He's like, hey, how's it been? I am on vacation. I'm going to here and there. And he's like, you were my second IOE instructor. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah. And then I kind of all came flooding back, and I'm like, oh, you flew with that Spider Lady or Black Widow or whatever she was named. He was, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah. So all of a sudden, all the memories and come flooding back, and you have a little bit of a 10-minute road memory lane journey there. And then, you know, it's good. It's good. It feels good. And the more years you spend in this industry, if you have a good personality, good character, you know, you're just going to attract people like that. Like moth to a flame. People will be respectful to you. You'll be respectful to them, and you're gonna make some great friendships, and memories. So, always put your best foot forward in this career.
Absolutely.
Terry, anything else before we wrap up the show here today?
No, I got nothing.
You got nothing.
I got nothing.
You got nothing. Well, when do you go for your
I
landing?
I greased
call?
it on yesterday.
Did you? You greased it?
I greased it yesterday, so you know
Nice.
it's not bad after flying 9 hours across the ocean.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I've been having a streak of good landings lately, and I haven't been flying as much as I used to. I used to fly every week, 4-day trip every week. Now I'm flying a 3-day trip here, and then maybe I'll have like 5 days off, and then I do a 2-day trip, and I'll trade this trip for that trip, and then I'll fly a 5-day trip, and I'm like exhausted, and it's taking me longer to recover, especially with these schedules. I think, you know, we're up for contract negotiations next year. I've actually volunteered to be what they call an NAN, I think it is, National something network. I don't want to say the name of it. But so I'm a volunteer, and what we're doing is we're talking to pilots on the line, and I read the emails that come out from my union, and we go on the line, we talk about it, and we get their opinions. Like, what would you like to see in the next contract? What's most important to you? Most important thing or most common thing that's said is, I want to see quality of life improvements. You know, the money's okay, but you know, the schedules are, you know, I'm tired. I come home from my trip, and there's like no power tool rule for 12 hours because I'm exhausted after my trips, because there's circadian rhythm is out the window, and different bases have different complaints about their schedules. Like the West Coast pilots are all the same. They're like, oh, we're going to start with a red eye, 11 hours in some hotel on the East Coast. And then when I was waking up to go to work, now I was going to sleep the night before. Now I'm waking up, and so now my circadian rhythm's all off. Now I'm tired. Now I'm flying another transcon to do another 11 to 12 hour layover. Now I'm doing a 3-leg on day 3, in and out of these smaller airports that take a lot more attention out of you, with no opportunity to eat because there's no crew meals, the flights are too short, and now we have a 15-hour layover somewhere, but then at the hotel is like a 30-minute van ride. By the time we get to the hotel, everything's closed. There's no chance to eat. Now I got to Uber Eats pizza because that's all that's there. And it just, you listen to these same story over and over again. It's so exhausting. And then you come home from these trips and you're just exhausted. And the family's like, all right, you're home. Let's try. Yeah, let's go cut the grass. Let's go take the trash out. Come on. You got the shed needs to be painted. Come on. And you're like, okay. And you're dragging your ass. And I think I'd be interested to see if the sick calls have gone up lately, because everyone I know, it doesn't matter what airline you're working for, everyone I know, they all say the same thing. Yeah, schedules suck right now. And I think there's just a point of diminishing returns when it comes to productivity with these airlines and the employees that they're trying to get to be very productive, because we're paying you more. So now we need you to be more productive. So those days of 18-hour layovers and, you know, decent hours, those are gone because we need you to be productive.
Yeah.
But is there a relation? Is there a correlation between productive schedules with minimum rest, though it's legal, with the increase in appearance of aircraft incidents? Or maybe what we don't see on the news is the increase in minor mismanagement or minor quality assurance in the aircraft. How many checklists are missed? How many procedures? How many SOPs are broken? How many flap overspeeds? How many landing on taxiways? How many wrong airport landings have there been? And unfortunately, we're not going to see any of this data probably for a year or two, when the data points are collected and they go, hey, in 2024, we had an uptick towards the end of the year of overspeeds, go-arounds, unstabilized approaches, all these things. I wonder why. We need to be more vigilant. We need to have another threat and error management. No, you need to improve the schedules. You need to give these pilots rest. My last FO was a F-35 squadron commander, retired from the Marines. And I'm going to try to get him on the show because not only was he one of the most professional pilots I've flown with in a very long time, his character was just outstanding. And I gave him a stellar review on his probationary report. Really, really had a good time with him. And I told him afterwards, hey, I hope to fly with you again very, very soon. And he agreed to come on the show. So it's just a matter of logistics and trying to get him on the show. But as an F-35 currently sim instructor and an airline pilot for Legacy Airlines, he had a lot of insight about when you're not at wartime and you're in theater and you're aboard an aircraft carrier or a vessel and they say, hey, we want you to be on alert 24 hours and during this time. And he's like, no, you want them to be at alert at that time during the walkle. It's going to take 4 days for them to acclimate on ship. And then after those 4 days, they can do a consistent walkle ready alertness between midnight and 4 a.m. And then after their shift is over, after 5 days, they're going to need 48 hours to reacclimate to daytime if you want them to run drills or anything. And I sat there and I go, are you kidding me? He's like, we're not in wartime. He goes, you want aircraft accidents aboard a ship with a $50 million F-35 that can hover and land, vertical takeoff, landing? No, this is the minimum. And I was like, fuck, this guy's good. Like, this guy gets it. And we'll talk about leadership and leadership toolboxes. I learned a lot from that trip. And hopefully I can have him, Aaron, if you're listening, thank you. It was a pleasurable experience. Hopefully I can get him on the show here pretty soon.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Definitely be cool to compare and contrast perspectives. We had very similar rules in the Army. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Too bad the airlines don't take a note. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of that they expect you to do on your own.
Yeah.
But,
and it's not like the footing here with schedules and everything. They think we're a bunch of whiny guys. I should have Roger on today, but guys complaining about your crew meals and your schedules, and meanwhile I'm flying all over India for 3 weeks with my company and going into airports where the air traffic controller has a walkie-talkie and doesn't speak very good English.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah,
you're right. You're right, dude. But anyway, well, a big thank you to Alex and Terry for joining me today. Absolutely love having you on every single chance I get on the show. It's great catching up with all of you as well out there. Please help us out by sharing this podcast online and with your friends. It absolutely helps us out. Now that the frequency hasn't been as regular as I would like it, listenership has gone down. So help us out, please. I implore you. Just share this podcast with a friend, online, social media, whatever you got to do. Make sure you also subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to, or follow us. You can go to the Squawk Ident Podcast website. Another website that I wanted to mention before we wrap it up today is a website from a very good friend of mine, Andrew Ross. Now, Andrew has been on the show before, and he talked about a book called The Airline Transition Manual. You can find that book on Amazon. You can order it. It's a great way, especially if you're in the military and you're thinking about going to the airlines and you got a million questions on what to do. And you could fly the airplane, sure, but do you know how to bid? Do you know what the schedule is going to be like? Do you know what you're expected to bring to the flight deck or to training? This book has all those answers. Written by Richard Swindell, Jolanda Whitvillette, and Andrew Ross. You can go to airlinetransition.org to learn more. I want to say thank you because Andrew actually sent me a certified package the other day. Terry, you're going to love this. So we spoke on the phone. He sent me some swag from his book. And he goes, hey, man, I got another package coming for you. Let me know when you get it. And literally 24 hours later, FedEx shows up. And this package comes over and I'm like, what is this? But you got to check this out. And he said a friend of his got this in like a vintage record shop and gave it to him. And he's like, I don't know what to do with it. So then he goes, oh my God, this has to go to Tony.
That's awesome.
This
That is so cool.
This is Squawk Ident, an introduction to IFR flying, endorsed by PATCO, Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization. This came from Sporty's Pilot Shop in 1969. And I listened to this record because I now have a growing record collection. I get vintage records, and I have a sound studio that, Terry, I know you'd appreciate. I'll have to FaceTime you and show you what I got. But it's all a bunch of clearances. So it starts out with clearance, Cessna 3476 Yankee, cleared to the Trenton Airport via direct Chatham, direct Solberg, direct Yardley, direct Trenton, maintained 2,000 feet. And so you listen to it, and then you read it back, and you keep going. And the clearances get harder and harder and harder. And the very last one, the very last one's fun. Cessna 312 Yankee cleared to Allentown Airport, climb runway heading to 800 feet, then turn right to the outer marker. Turn right heading 270, intercept the Stillwood 121 radial to Morristown intersection, then the Salzburg 061 radial to intercept Victor 232 Tannersville, Victor 39, cross the outer marker at 1,500 feet, cross Morristown intersection at 2,000 feet, cross the Salzburg 025 radial and maintain 5,000. That's one clearance.
What?
It's right there.
That's ridiculous.
Now, if you're on the ground and you're writing this clearance on a piece of paper, I, with all my experience, would say again.
Yeah.
Because, in the air, they can't give you more than 3. If they give you 3.
That's in the United States. I just want you to know that.
Oh, what? Is it what happens outside the United States?
Oh, I've gotten more than that. I've gotten as I think as much as 6.
Oh, wow.
At once. Yeah. And you're like, I can't remember, like 3 you can remember, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Climb, maintain 8,000, maintain heading, 160 and, maintain at least 280 knots. Okay. I can remember that. Right. Oh, now it's, then throw in a couple more and you're like, what was that first thing?
Yeah. What, you didn't write it down? Where's your pen and paper? Didn't you write it down? Oh, I'm sorry, my stenography is out of date. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. No, my favorite response to one of those clearances. Now, hold on a minute. We're American. You got to say that again 3 more times or once, real slow like. Oh man. Well, anyway, again, thank you to Alex and Terry for joining us. Help us out. Share the podcast online with your friends. Please subscribe and follow the Squawk Ident Podcast, whatever platform you're listening on. We also love receiving listener feedback, as we talked about earlier. Send us an email or even an audio feedback. I'll be happy to play it on the show. Just visit the website, aviatortony.com. That's Alpha, Victor, the number 8, Romeo, Tango, Oscar, November, Yankee.com. There you'll find audio archives, photos from the flight line, guestbook photo tab, and other Squawk Ident photo pilot shop stuff. You can order mugs, t-shirts, things like that. Only a very, 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 very small percentage of those proceeds help out this podcast. Nothing really. But if you wanted to help us out financially to help keep this podcast on the air and going, just right there on the homepage from the website, you can click on the donate now or support or become a producer. I forget what it is, but yeah, you can send us a couple bucks every month or whatever. I'm sure it'll go towards the podcast, not beer. Honestly, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram users, you can still find us under the Squawk Ident Podcast. And I want to take a moment here and just say thank you to all of you for taking the time to listen to these grateful aviators. Keep the dirty side down out there. Keep safe and take care of each other. Bye, y'all.
See ya.
No, I don't do that on the radio.
You're on guard.
Or as Rob would say, where is he?
You're on guard.
There he is. All right, peace out.
Do you know anything about planes?
I flew in the war.
time ago. I wouldn't know anything about it.
Do you know anything about planes? Do you know anything about planes?
Can you fly this airplane and land it?
No, not a chance. No, not a chance. No, 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 not a chance.
Roger. Huh? Roger. Huh? Request vector. Over. What?
Do you know anything about planes?
Clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
The elite. Best of the best. We'll make you better. We'll make you better.
Do you know anything about planes?
Oh, jeez. Oh, you kill me. You really do.
Do you know anything about planes?
Captain, how soon can you land? I can't tell. You can tell me, I'm a doctor. No, I mean, I'm just not sure.
Do you know anything about planes?
Can you fly this plane and land it?
It's an entirely different kind of flying. Do you know anything about planes?